Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kickstarter Weekly here at Think Outside the Board. This week's episode is for games that are funding from November 1st through November 7th. And I have 4 games to talk to you about today. I also have 3 backed games and 3 played games. So without any further ado, let's just get right to it. And the first game that I'm talking to you about today is Small Railroad Empires, which is going to complete its funding on November 3rd. Now, this game had a minimum required funding of $5,000. They're currently sitting at $40,000, which is 8 times that minimum required funding goal. Small Railroad Empires is for 1 to 4 players. It plays in 30 to 60 minutes. Complexity on the game is medium light, and we're going to set the risk for this campaign at medium high. Now, this is the 3rd in a series of Small Empires games by Arcona Games. The first in that series, Small Star Empires, was published in 2016. There was a game called Small Sea Empires that they originally intended to publish in 2019, but that game has just gotten pushed, so it may eventually show up on crowdfunding, it may not, but it was kind of bumped down the line in the series. Small Samurai Empires published in 2020, and now we've got Small Railroad Empires, which did have a previous campaign and originally published this year in 2021, but now they're back for a second campaign for this game along with some extras. But all of the games in the series have similar mechanics. They're a little bit different, and they obviously vary in theme. Milan Tesevsky is the designer of Small Railroad Empires, and in fact, if we look at his other games, this is kind of his niche that he's developing, these Small Empires games. So he has previously designed Small Railroad Empires, Small Samurai Empires, and Small Star Empires. Milan Tesevsky is pulling double duty here. He's also the artist, but he's done that on all of the Small Empires games. So as an artist, he is also previously credited on Small Railroad Empires, Small Samurai Empires, and Small Star Empires. And finally, Small Railroad Empires is being published by Arcona Games, which is Milan Tesevsky's company. And so their previous published games include Small Railroad Empires, Small Samurai Empires, and Small Star Empires. Now, there are essentially 5 different pledge levels on this one. If you have backed the game previously and you already own it, but you want to get the new content here, you can pledge for $3 at the Seasoned Traveler pledge level. And that will get you an upgrade pack that includes a new revised rulebook, some new revised player aids, some extra tokens, and the Industrial Boom variant. If you pledge at the Seafarer level, which is $11, you will get the upgrade pack, but you will also get the Freight on Board mini expansion. Pledging at the Captain level for $31 will get you those 2 things plus a playmat. Now, if you don't have the original base game, you can pledge at the $50 level. It is called Investor. That will get you the base game, the Freight on Board mini expansion, and deluxe tracks, which are upgraded from the tracks in the base game. And those are a Kickstarter exclusive, so the only place that you'll be able to get those are through this campaign. And then finally, for $100, you can pledge the Entrepreneur Pledge. That will get you those same things, the base game, the Freight on Board mini expansion, and the deluxe tokens, but you will also get the playmat, the Red Company expansion, which is a 5th player expansion, and the Scenario Packs 1 and 2. Now, there are a lot of these things that you can also get separately as add-ons, so I'm going to quickly go over those as well. So for $2, you can just add on that upgrade pack. For $5, you can get promo achievement cards. Now, the only way that those are available are as an add-on. So if you're doing any of the other pledge levels and you want those promo achievement cards, don't forget to add those on. For $10, you can get that Freight on Board mini expansion. For $20, you can get the Red Company 5th player expansion. For $17, you can get Scenario Pack 1. And for $17, you can get Scenario Pack 2. So they're 2 different charges. If you get them both, it's $34. The playmat by itself is a $20 add-on, and like those deluxe tracks, the playmat is also a Kickstarter exclusive. So if you want to get that, you need to get that through this campaign. And finally, the deluxe track set, also an exclusive, as I mentioned before, you can get that as an add-on for $15. One final thing I just want to say about this game. If you have Railways of the World or Age of Steam with lots of map packs, you may not feel the need for other train games, but I think this is a pretty good option for someone who maybe doesn't have those games and wants to start a little bit smaller. Another option for someone like that, I might recommend the Iron Rail series from Capstone Games. Those are kind of single, standalone train games. There is Irish Gauge, Iberian Gauge, and Ride the Rails currently in that series. But either Small Railroad Empires or any of those three games are fairly good options for somebody who wants a smaller train game. Now, if you want to expand your variability in Small Railroad Empires and get it a little bit closer to some of those other games, the way to do it is with those scenario packs, 1 and 2, the ones that are $17 each if you're doing them as add-ons. Those are essentially map packs. So those will give you additional maps that you can play on other than the base game's main board and give you different variability in terms of what you can do with the game and how you can play it. And finally, Arcona Games is planning to deliver Small Railroad Empires in September of 2022. From there, we move to Bardwood Grove, which is going to complete funding on November the 4th, which incidentally is going to be Thursday of this week. Now, they had a minimum required funding goal of $30,000. They're currently sitting at $189,000, which is about 6.3 times that minimum required funding goal. Now, Bardwood Grove is a game for 1 to 4 players. It plays in about 60 to 90 minutes. Complexity is somewhere in the medium range, and for now I'm just going to estimate it at medium light. And the risk on this one, I'm going to set at medium low. It's being put out by Final Frontier Games, and they've done a bunch of Kickstarters, and they've done a good job running their Kickstarters. Now, this game is set in their 5 Realms universe. Other games that have appeared in that series are Cavern Tavern, Rise to Nobility, and most recently Merchant's Cove. In fact, through this campaign, you can get a new playable character for Merchant's Cove, and you can even pledge for that by itself. But we'll talk about that when we get down into the pledge section. Essentially, though, this is a deck building and tableau game that's set in that universe, and it also features asymmetric player abilities. So the designer on Bardwood Grove is Carl Van Ostrand. He's previously worked on Kapow, Merchant's Cove, and Ophidian 2350 CCG. The artist on this game is the Miko, and he has worked on all of the Final Frontier games. His actual name is Mahalo Dmitrievsky, and his 5 highest rated games are Architects of the West Kingdom, Paladins of the West Kingdom, Raiders of the North Sea, Valeria Card Kingdoms, and Viscounts of the West Kingdom. Finally, Bardwood Grove is being published by Final Frontier Games, and their highest rated games on BGG include Coloma, Merchant's Cove, and Rise to Nobility. So the first level that you can pledge this is $19. That is the Spirits of the Forest expansion, which is going to include some more cards and some more variability, but it will also include an extra playable character. So you won't get the base game if you pledge at that $19 level. You'll just get this Spirits of the Forest extras pack, which will include the ability to play that additional character in Merchant's Cove. So if for some reason you don't want Bardwood Grove, but you just want that extra character to play with Merchant's Cove, then pledge that $19 pledge level. For $59, you're going to get the standard version of Bardwood Grove. If you pledge at the $79 level, you'll get the deluxe edition of Bardwood Grove, and that does include a lot of upgraded components. I would really encourage anyone who thinks that they might want to buy this game and want a nicer version to do that. A lot of those upgraded components, I believe, are going to be Kickstarter exclusives. So this would be the time to get that version. And for my money, it looks like the version that I think if you have the game and you're going to be playing it a bunch, get that version. It's a lot nicer. I mean, assuming that you can afford it. Now for $110, which is a $31 jump, you can pledge at the collector's edition pledge level. And that is going to add on to the deluxe version of the game, the Spirits of the Forest expansion, and a set of metal coins. Now, if you only want one of those 2 things, let's say, for instance, you don't feel a need to have metal coins, perhaps you have some of their other games and you have metal coins for those games that you'll also be able to use in Bardwood Grove, You could just pledge that deluxe level and then maybe get one of those two things as an add-on. They are both available as add-ons. So for $19, you can pledge for Spirits of the Forest as an add-on. It's the same price that you would pledge if you pledged it alone at that Spirits of the Grove expansion price. So you can just add it on. In fact, I'm considering backing this, and I think if I do that, that's probably what I'll do. I'll probably do the deluxe version and then add on the Spirits of the Forest expansion because I don't need another set of metal coins. But if you do want the metal coins and you don't want that whole package, you can also buy the metal coins as an add-on for $19 as well. And then finally, Final Frontier Games is shooting to deliver Bardwood Grove in August of 2022. From there we go to Too Many Bones Unbreakable, which is going to complete its funding on November 5th on Gamefound. So this is not a Kickstarter game, this is on Gamefound. And just a quick reminder that whenever I'm talking about these games, if any of them appeal to you and you think you want to pledge it, you can just go down into the description section. You can, find the name of the game and the link, click on that. It will take you over to Kickstarter, or in this case, with Too Many Bones, over to Gamefound. And then you can look at the campaign over there. And then if you decide to back it at that link. Now, Too Many Bones Unbreakable had a minimum required funding goal of $50,000, 50. They're currently sitting at $2.5 million, which is 49 times that minimum required funding goal. Too Many Bones Unbreakable is a game for 1 to 2 players. It's supposed to play in 1 to 3 hours. Mechanically, this is a game of heavy complexity, and we're going to set the risk level on this one at low because it's being produced by Chip Theory Games, and they are an amazing publisher, very responsible, very high production values, one of the best publishers out there in my opinion. Now, Too Many Bones Unbreakable is actually the third game in a series. The first was Too Many Bones, and then they did Too Many Bones Undertow, which was a standalone game. So you could just get Undertow without having that original base game and play that. And just like Undertow, this game, Unbreakable, is also a standalone expansion. So essentially now in this series, there are 3 standalone games. There are a lot of extras, but there are 3 standalone games. So you can get any one of those games if you're just looking to try out this series and you don't want to spend a ton of money. Just buy one of those standalone expansions. Whichever you want is really up to you. I like to do things in order, so I probably would just get the original Too Many Bones. But any of those base games, if you're thinking frugally and you're just wanting to spend a smaller amount of money, any one of those base games will get you a great gaming experience on its own. Now, these are cooperative kind of role-playing games, and they're also dice builders. So like a role-playing video game, you're going to have tech trees and things like that. And over the course of the game, as you fight battles and get experience, you're going to be able to upgrade those abilities, partly using different dice. So you'll be able to upgrade your dice and roll better rolls, upgrade your skills on your neoprene mat tech trees, and be able to do better and more powerful things. Also, every character plays differently. Some of them come in different versions of the game, and more are available as add-ons, but they all have variable player powers, and they're all going to play differently. So the way that you build them over the course of the game will depend on how that character plays to begin with. They are very much like role-playing video games where you kind of upgrade your characters as you progress. Now, Too Many Bones Unbreakable has 3 different designers: Adam Carlson, Josh J. Carlson, and Josh Wielgus. Adam Carlson and Josh J. Carlson have previously designed Cloudspire, Too Many Bones, and Too Many Bones Undertow, and Josh Wielgus has previously designed Cloudspire. The artist here is Anthony Letourneau, and he has previously worked on Cloudspire, Too Many Bones, and Too Many Bones Undertow. And finally, this game is being published by Chip Theory Games, and they have previously published Cloudspire, Too Many Bones, and Too Many Bones Undertow. Now, there are kind of 6 big pledge levels on this one. The first is an $85 pledge. It's called Unbreakable, and that will get you the new standalone base game. If you want the original game, that's a pledge level also. For $130, you can get the original Too Many Bones game. Now, that's more expensive because it has more content than the new standalone game. And it's also a really good starting point, one that I probably would encourage new players to begin with. Now, if we jump to the $220 pledge level called Unbreakable Hero, that's basically going to get you all of the new stuff. So you won't get that Too Many Bones base game, the first one in with it. You will get the new base game, the standalone Too Many Bones Unbreakable, but you'll also get 40 Waves in Dolore, which is an expansion that has new encounters and new baddies. And if that sounds similar, it's very similar to another expansion called 40 Days in Dolore that is the same kind of expansion but for the original base game. You'll also get an expansion called Rage of Tyranny that's going to take the tyrants in the game, the kind of big bosses, the final bosses, and that's going to give you new ways for those tyrants to work, kind of new mechanics, new variability with those tyrants. And if that sounds familiar, that's because that is also similar to an expansion for the first game called Age of Tyranny. So the first game has Age of Tyranny, this game has Rage of Tyranny, the first game has 40 Days of Dolore, this game has 40 Waves of Dolore. And also at that pledge level, you're going to get 3 new characters that you can play, Carcass, Polaris, and Static. And all of the other campaigns have had kind of additional characters as extras, and this campaign is no exception. So these are the 3 characters that you can get outside of the new base game, 3 new characters, and they're available through that bundle. Now for $240, you can get the Bones Basic Bundle, and that's kind of an early all-in for the first game. So for that price, you're going to get the original game, Too Many Bones. You'll also get that 40 Days in Dolore expansion and the Age of Tyranny expansion. So those are the expansions for the first game that are similar to those newer expansions for the Unbreakable standalone. You'll also get the Adventure Map 2.0, which is like a little neoprene map that you can kind of track your progress on in a campaign. And you'll get 2 of the characters, the extra characters that were add-ons for the first game, Gilly and Nugget. So that is the package for the Bones Basic Bundle. Now, if you really kind of want to boost the content that you're backing up, for $675, there's a pledge called Just Enough Bones. Now that's going to include all 3 base games. So Too Many Bones Undertow, and Too Many Bones Unbreakable, the newest standalone game. You'll also get both 40 Days in Dolore and 40 Waves in Dolore, and you'll get the Age of Tyranny and the Rage of Tyranny expansions. You'll also get all 3 of the new characters that are add-ons, Carcass, Polaris, and Static. You'll get the 3 original add-on characters from the first game, Gilly, Tink, and Nugget. You'll also get Gasket, which was an extra add-on character that came out at the same time that Undertow was published. And then last year they did another expansion. It was called Splice and Dice. That one was not standalone, so that one worked with other content. And that expansion gave you the ability to create new characters. But when they published that, they also included 2 additional add-on characters. One was called Dart, and Dart actually has 2 sides to the character, so kind of 2 different ways you can play it. And then they had an add-on character, which was a group of characters, and it was called the Lab Rats. So they were kind of examples of characters that you could build in Splice and Dice, essentially characters that the designers themselves made using that Splice and Dice type system. So you will get all of those things in that $675 Just Enough Bones pledge. But wait, there's more. There's still one higher pledge level. For $1,100, you can pledge the Ultimate Completionist pledge level. And that is going to get you everything I just mentioned in the previous pledge level, plus all of these following things. The Adventure Map 2.0, so that's the kind of little neoprene map that you can track where you're going. And for some reason, that's not part of that previous pledge level. You can always do it as an add-on, but it will also be included in this huge completionist pledge. You'll also get the Unbreakable adventure map. So it's going to be similar to that 2.0 adventure map, but it's specifically for Unbreakable. And again, that's something that you can pledge as an add-on because that's not going to be available through some of these pledge levels. You'll also get a large play mat, which will kind of accommodate the other neoprene mats. And it has on one side a lot of areas to kind of place everything and set it up. It shows you how to do it. But it has a second side with sort of a generic image on it that you can use if you just want a general playmat to use for other things. You'll also get a set of premium health chips, which are something that are kind of a requirement once you get deeper into the game. And these premium health chips will stack on some of the monsters and the tyrants better than the chips that come with the game. So it's kind of a cosmetic addition, but it does make it a little more functional as well. You'll also get the Trove Chest, which is a huge storage solution, and it comes with a lot of dividers and cases and other things to help you sort and store all of the various characters and parts of the game as well. You'll get a neoprene dice tray to make it easier to roll dice in and not have them run off the table. You'll get a collapsible dice tower. You'll get the 4 promo packs that were published every year. So 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. You'll get all 4 of those. You'll get the Gearlock Child, which was kind of an April Fool's joke. It's a character that's sort of modeled after the child on The Mandalorian, but it's a real thing. Even though it was an April Fool's joke, it was something that they actually made and they produced. So it's available again here through this campaign. It's another playable character. You'll also get a little bonus pack called Trollin' for Fools, which adds in some kind of goofy extra cards. You'll get the Ally Pack, which makes some of your pets for certain characters into more like characters themselves with their own little stacks of chips. And you'll get 4 books. Some of them are journals, some of them are hardback books, but they're things that you can kind of write in and keep track of your adventures, as well as some of the books contain a lot of lore and stories and things like that. So if you really want to go deep and you want to get everything, including all of those extras, some of which are cosmetic and not necessary to gameplay, like those books with the lore, this is your pledge level, $1,100. Now, as far as shipping goes, it's different for every country. It's even different whether you're in the continental US, Puerto Rico, Alaska, or Hawaii. So I don't talk about shipping in these videos. I just allow you to go and check and find out what the shipping is going to be for wherever you live. So just know that, though, that the prices that I'm quoting you do not include shipping. And finally, Chip Theory Games is aiming to deliver Too Many Bones Unbreakable in June 2022. The final game in the currently running Kickstarter section is the Skulls of Sedlec Expansion Collection. Now, this is going to complete funding on November 6th. They had a $2,000 minimum required funding goal. And the reason for that is this is a company that does wallet games, which are usually 18 cards each. So they're smaller games. They don't take as much to produce. So their minimum required funding goal was $2,000. However, they're already at $49,000, which is about 25 times that minimum required funding goal. So they're doing very, very well for this size game. Now, Skulls of Sedlec is a 2 to 3 player game. However, there are a lot of little kind of mini expansions available, and they will allow you to bring that player count from 2 to 3 to 1 through 4. So there's some solo expansions, and there's also expansions once you kind of throw in extra cards, you'll be able to get up to 4 players playing it. Games are designed to be played in about 20 minutes. The complexity level on Skulls of Sedlec is light. And the risk level here, I'm going to set at medium-low. I would go even lower because I think the publisher Button Shy has been doing this for a while. They've delivered a lot of Kickstarters. They know what they're doing. They're responsible. They always do a good job. However, it's a very small operation, which is essentially one person, Jason Tagmeyer. So the reason that I'm keeping this one at medium-low instead of all the way at low is just with the additional risk that's kind of involved with that. So God forbid something were to happen with Jason Tagmeyer, if he were to get hit by a cab or something. He's in New York City. The whole thing would probably fall apart. I mean, hopefully someone would come in and fix it up, but it does kind of rely on, for the most part, this linchpin of one person. So we're going to keep the risk level at medium-low instead of low. Now, this game is designed by Dustin Dobson. He has previously designed Skulls of Sedlec, the base game. The artist is Marty Cobb, who has previously worked on Antimony, Skulls of Sedlec, and Space Shipped. And then finally, the publisher here is Button Shy. Their highest rated games over at Board Game Geek include Circle the Wagons, Sprawlopolis, and Tussie Mussy. Now, there's really 3 different pledge levels for this campaign. The first one is $10, and that's called Skulls of Sedlec Expansion Collection, and that is going to get you 3 new little mini expansions. Each of them is 6 cards, so together they are 18 cards, which is normally what a Button Shy game is, 18 cards. So this one is kind of just subdivided into 3 different expansions. Those are the Champions, the Merchants, and the Zealots. And what Skulls of Sedlec is, it's this 18 card wallet game, and it's kind of card drafting and set collection. So you're trying to get different kinds of skulls, collections of skulls. And the more you add in different expansion packs, the more different rules and different ways of collecting are kind of thrown into the game. So each of these new 3 expansions, Champions, Merchants, and Zealots, will give you more scoring possibilities and more variability in the way that you can play the game. However, if you don't have the base game, you may want to pledge the $35 pledge level that is called Everything Skulls of Sedlec. So that will get you the base game, of course, the 3 new expansions. You'll also get the 3 previous expansions. They were each 6 cards as well: Castle Guards, Executioners, and Poets. And you'll get a solo expansion called Monstrance. And I should also mention that in both the $10 and $35 pledge levels, you'll be getting the second solo module, which is called Crown of Bones. And then finally, in this $35 pledge level, the one I'm talking about right now, you're going to get 2 kind of bonus packs of cards. One's called Halloween Features and one's called Holiday Features. So that $35 pledge level will get you everything Skulls of Sedlec. There is one more pledge level here. It's for $40. It's called the Button Shy Instant Collection, and that will get you most of the Skulls of Sedlec content, but not all of it. You won't actually be getting the Executioners, Castle Guards, or Poets expansions. And if you want this kind of higher pledge level, you can also add those in. But you won't be getting the Castle Guards, Executioners, or Poets mini expansions at that $40 pledge level. You also won't be getting those 2 features packs. What you instead will get is Sprawlopolis and Tussie Mussy, the base games for both of those. So that's what's included in that $40 pledge. Finally, Button Shy is looking to deliver this Skulls of Sedlec expansion collection in February of 2022. Now that ends the 4 currently running Kickstarters that we're looking at this week, but I would also like to quickly talk to you about the 3 games from last week's video that I personally backed. First is a game called Fractal Beyond the Void. And if you want more information about any of these games in this section, you could always go back to last week's video and look at that first section where I talk about them in more detail. But I will mention that Fractal Beyond the Void is a 4X space-themed game. I think it was actually the Hungry Gamer who kind of sold me on this one. And how he described it is that the mechanics aren't anything necessarily revolutionary in Fractal. They're good, they're solid, but they're kind of what you would expect if you play games like Twilight Imperium or Eclipse. The mechanics here in Fractal aren't necessarily doing anything new, they're just solid. However, one key defining characteristic is the fact that every different faction has something that's very game-breaking, and the fun of it is kind of in playing different game-breaking variable player powers against other factions who are also overpowered in different ways. But what really sold me on Fractal was the fact that there's also a campaign that comes with it that can be played and replayed, and it looks like they're trying to build something bigger. I believe this is going to be the beginning, the first part of an ongoing kind of legacy campaign. So we'll have to see how successful the game is and how well they do moving forward and if there are future campaigns. But for right now, that was very exciting to me. And in that campaign, there are a bunch of different scenarios. So if you play one campaign, which is going to have at least 12 scenarios, they will be taken from an available, I think, 25 or so scenarios. So you can play that campaign multiple times, and it will probably play differently because you will probably be playing a mix and match of different kinds of scenarios. I also backed Mythwind, which is a very interesting game. It's asymmetric, so that players are playing with kind of different mechanics depending on who their character is, and it's cooperative. But the cool thing here about Mythwind is that it's just a completely open-ended game. There's never any end to it. It's kind of like maybe a video game or a game you might play on mobile where you can put it away whenever you want. you can come back to it later. There is an expansion available with Mythwind. It's kind of expansion content, but that's just going to add more content into the game to allow you to do different things. There still is not going to be kind of a stopping point. There's not so much a beginning, middle, and an end in Mythwind. There is just a beginning and lots of middle. And then how the game, the ongoing, never-ending game plays, depends what you do and kind of the story beats that get pulled into your adventure. And for me, I think this is a game that my fiance Kristen is really going to like. And they're doing something different with this than I think has ever really been done in board games before. And so I'm curious and I'm interested and I really want to see how this works. So you can expect me to cover that for the channel eventually when that Kickstarter delivers. And it's just something that I'm super curious about. You know, I'm always curious when someone's trying something new. And if it pays off, it could be a lot of fun and very unique all at the same time. I also backed Verdant, which is sort of a lighter game, card drafting and tile placement, but it's really card placement. So you're drafting cards and then you're laying them down and you're having to do different things to sort of take care of your plants. It is plant themed in the way that Wingspan is bird themed. So there are things that you may learn about plants as you're playing the game with the information on the cards. And Verdant's also being published by Flat Out Games, who have previously done Calico and Cascadia. And those are two other games that are kind of a similar production value, a similar complexity. And that gives me a lot of faith in Flat Out because they're kind of doing something for the third time now that they've already done well twice. And Verdant also had a very small price tag on it. I think it was $29 before shipping. So it's nice to have some of those games and some of those options that aren't necessarily all these big behemoths of games that are hundreds of dollars. This was a smaller game, smaller price tag with hopefully some still really fun and compelling gameplay choices. So those were the 3 games that I backed this period. Now let's talk about the 3 games that I actually played during the last week. The first of those is Dune Imperium. And I've actually played this game before quite a few times. I've made a video on it, so if you'd like to see my first impressions on Dune Imperium, I'll link that below in the description as well. Although I did produce that video a while back now, and my videos have continued to evolve a little bit, so it may look a little bit rougher than some of my more recent content. But I can tell you this about Dune Imperium. It is a really good, really solid game that combines deck building and worker placement. And I think if you're looking at sort of medium light to medium heavy, games right in that kind of medium range from this last year, I think Dune Imperium is one of the best ones. I would also put Lost Ruins of Arnak in that same category. And interestingly enough, Lost Ruins of Arnak is also deck building and worker placement, but the 2 games play very differently. So there's completely room in a collection for both, and I think both of those games in that kind of medium light veering into medium heavy complexity, they are 2 of the best games of this last year. I also played Gaia Project. Now, Gaia Project is very similar to Terra Mystica. I do not own Terra Mystica because you can play it for free on Board Game Arena. And I have played it for free there a lot. So much so that I haven't felt the need to actually purchase Terra Mystica. I think I can get all of it that I need at BGA. But there are 2 very similar games. One is Gaia Project, which is made by the same publisher as Terra Mystica, and it has some additional mechanics. It's a little bit more of a complex game, and I think it's definitely the one to own. Because like me, you could just get your fill of Terra Mystica at BGA. The other game is Clans of Caledonia, which is similar to both of those games. However, it has a farming theme, so it kind of feels like the Catan version of Terra Mystica and Gaia Project. But that game also has kind of a movable market. So as you kind of sell goods at the market, you're going to affect the price. And as you buy them as well, you'll drive prices kind of up and down. There's a movable market. And I really like that. And I like the theme behind Clans of Caledonia, but it is sort of separate from Terra Mystica and Gaia Project because different publisher. Now, all of these games have you playing a different faction, so you're going to have variable player abilities. You're going to be going out onto a map and building some structures and accumulating resources and looking to do some area control with the way you're constructing things around the map. The final game that I played this period is called Tinner's Trail. Now, that is a new edition of a game by Martin Wallace that was published several years ago. It's out of print, so Alley Cat Games did a new edition. And Martin Wallace has designed games like Age of Steam, Railways of the World, Brass, Australia. He makes a lot of good kind of heavy economic Euros. Oftentimes they involve a loan system that can be kind of painful. Now, Tinner's Trail to me feels like it's designed for a lighter audience than, say, the Brass games. And mechanically, it feels very similar to Australia, where the actions that you take cost different units of time, and whoever's furthest back on a time track is going to take an action. So until you take enough actions to kind of jump ahead of the pack, you'll keep taking actions. It's always the person who's furthest back will go and take their actions. And this is really a game of area majority, kind of staking out different territories and then manipulating them for resources. There are a couple different expansions in this new version of the game that will add some complexity. However, I just played the original base game. Now, I really liked it, and I think my fiance is going to like it when we eventually play it. But the two friends that I played it with last week didn't love it. The reason is there is kind of some bidding, essentially blind bidding. And if you risk too much on some of those early bids and you put too much in and you don't get a good return on what you're bidding for, or perhaps you do get a good return, but you actually price yourself out of future bids, things can go the wrong way for you in this game. And some of that can be controlled with the way that you bid. If you hedge your bets enough and you're kind of conservative and you take some extra actions so that the bidding isn't always blind for you, there's ways to do that. You can hedge your bets and you can kind of minimize your losses and you might be okay. But if you don't do that and someone else kind of gets a leg up on you over the course of a few different territories, you may find yourself in a situation where the game kind of runs away. And because I think it's not completely strategic, there is some luck involved with that, not every player is going to like that. However, Tinner's Trail is a shorter game. So if that does happen to you, if someone kind of runs away from the game early and their decisions snowball and become more and more advantageous for them and less advantageous for you, it won't necessarily be a situation where you feel like you're locked into a game for hours and hours. So I think it's a really good game for people who want that kind of economic game with more of a medium-light complexity, who don't mind bidding as a part of it, and some of that being unknown, and the possibility that the choices in the game can kind of snowball on each other. So I enjoyed the game. I don't plan on doing a first impressions video on it right away because it's not a new game. It's an older game with a newer version. And so probably what I'll do with Tinner's Trail eventually is get some more experience playing it, play with the different modules, and then I'll eventually do a full teach and review. But right now, at this moment, after playing it once, my rating of the game would probably be about a 7 out of 10. So I enjoyed it. That's the same rating I think that I gave to Dwellings of Eldervale. Different games, one's going to run a little shorter, one's economic, but both of those games are games that I genuinely enjoy that I also think are not perfect games. But I like them. The two friends that I played Tinner's Trail with, though, both of them liked it less than I did. In fact, one of them said he doesn't want to play it again. So I think it was just that kind of randomness and the ability for an early leader to just run away with the game. So those are the 3 games that I played this week. I'm not going to do a what's coming section because I didn't really get to do video work this week. And I talked about that last week in last week's video. So if you'd like to hear what's coming, you can go back and watch the what's coming in that section. And what I said in that video still stands. There are a bunch of videos I'm planning on getting out this week. And then once I do that, I will check back in next week's Kickstarter Weekly and set up a new kind of production slate of a handful of videos that will come out the following week. But to hear what that is, join me for next week's Kickstarter Weekly. And in the meantime, have a great week. Play lots of great games. If you haven't yet, please remember to like and subscribe. And I will see you all very soon in several new videos that will be coming out over the next week. Take care.